Hare Krishna, Mataji. Are you able to see the screen, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji. Sorry, it was in mute.
No, no.
Mataji, yes, I can see you and the screen also, PPT also, both visible.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yeah. So, today we are going to start on 6.37. So, what will happen? What is the destination of an unsuccessful yogi? So, Ashtanga yogi, what happens if he is not able to succeed ultimately? So, what will happen to him? Okay, so unsuccessful transcendentalists obtain either heavenly enjoyment followed by aristocratic birth if they are slightly advanced, or birth in a family of wise transcendentalists that bring them immediate further training if they are more advanced. Okay, so this we will cover in the coming shlokas. So, what happens to the unsuccessful transcendentalist? So, what if he is not able to complete and go back, reach Paramatma? So, what happens to him? So, what happens to the unsuccessful transcendentalist? Although he begins the process of self realization with faith, he later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism. So actually, I think there are no shlokas given 6.37. So I'll try to share the Bhagavad Gita shlokas. Yeah. Can you see the shloka, Mataji? I think you're on mute, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji, I can see.
Yeah. So can you please read the shloka and the translation, Mataji?
Yeah, sure, Mataji, sure.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Arjuna Uvacha Ayati Shraddhayopeto Yogach Chalitamanasaha Aprapya Yoga Samsiddhim Kam Gedim Krishna Gachati.
Hari Bol. Very nice, Mataji.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. Shall I go through the translation?
Yes, please, Mataji.
Translation. Sorry. Arjuna said, "O Krishna, what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in his mysticism?"
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
So, in this verse, Arjuna asks a very practical question. He asks, what happens to a person who begins spiritual life with faith but later becomes distracted by worldly desires and does not reach perfection? So, Srila Prabhupada, in the purport, he explains that what does self-realization mean? So, self-realization means understanding I am not this body. I am eternal soul, meant to be in my happiness with Krishna. So, we can get this realization by any process actually, by Jnana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. Okay, so in the purport also, Prabhupada says, so Krishna has already said earlier that even a little effort on this path saves one from great danger. Okay, so if you do little bit of bhakti also will save you from the greatest danger. So, but still Arjuna wanted clear confirmation. Why? Because in this age, the mind is weak and material attraction is strong. So Prabhupada says that spiritual life is like declaring a war on Maya. So when a person tries to move towards Krishna, Maya tries even harder to pull him back. How? Through enjoyment or comfort or pride or distraction. Okay, this is how Maya attracts us. And then they will fall down, and there are chances that they might fall down. So that's why Arjuna is asking this question. See, does a person lose everything? Does that Ashtanga yogi who started spiritual practice, does he lose everything? Or like his effort is protected? Okay, so that is what he asks. So now let's see in Shloka 38 what further Arjuna is asking. Mataji, can you please read Shloka 6.38? Hare Krishna, Mataji. I think you're on mute, Mataji.
Sorry, Mataji.
Just try to keep yourself unmuted, Mataji. No problem.
Okay, because now outside some construction is going on, so there will be disturbance. That's why I've kept it muted every time.
Oh, because every 2 minutes maybe you'll have to unmute, mute. That's why, Mataji.
Yeah, actually, sometimes I forget, Mataji. Sorry.
Yeah,
Hare
no problem.
Krishna.
No, yeah.
Hare Krishna. Shloka 6.38. Kachinno Bhaya Vishashtash Chinna
Vibrashtas, Mataji. Vibrashtas.
Vibrashtash Chinna Pravida Nashyati
Iva Chinnabhram Iva.
Chinnabhram Iva Nashyati Apradishto Mahabaho Vimudho Brahmanah Pathi.
Hari bol. Yes, Mataji.
Thank you.
Translation, Mataji.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Translation: O mighty armed Krishna, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a driven cloud with no position in any sphere?
Hare Krishna. Thank you,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna.
So here in the shloka, Arjuna he becomes even more concerned. In addition to the other first previous shloka question, he is asking one more thing. So what is he asking? He's asking if a person leaves material life to follow the spiritual path, but then fails, does he lose both material enjoyment and spiritual success? Okay, so Srila Prabhupada he explains in the purport. See, there are generally two paths. Okay, one is material life where people aim for money, comfort, or higher planets. Okay, and the second other is spiritual life where one has to give up material enjoyment to realize the soul and God. Okay, so these are the two paths. Now, Arjuna's fear is if a person leaves material goals and then fails spiritually, he will lose both side. He will lose both. He is not able to enjoy materially, and spiritually also he failed. So both ways he is at a loss. So that's why he's asking that question. So Prabhupada gives the example of a riven cloud. See, you may see that a small cloud, it tries to join a big cloud. But if it cannot join, it gets scattered by the wind and it disappears. Okay, so similarly, see, it looks like the fallen transcendentalist or this Ashtanga yogi, he has no position, neither here or there. Okay, neither in the spiritual world or material world. So Arjuna is thinking like that. But Prabhupada, he gives a solution. He says real success is surrender to Krishna. Okay, who is the supreme person. Other paths like Brahman or Paramatma, they take many births. But Bhakti Yoga is direct. So what do they say? What is Prabhupada saying here? See, take directly to Krishna consciousness, worship of Krishna, which is direct. The other two parts like what? Brahman and Paramatma. So Brahman means what? Impersonal Brahman, where they think God has no form. And Paramatma is the localized aspect, where the yogis meditate upon Paramatma in their heart. And what is the last realization? Actually, we have three different realizations, right? Of God, of absolute truth. First is impersonal Brahman, second is localized Paramatma, third is Bhagavan. So, if we take directly to Bhagavan or Krishna, the worship of Krishna, it is easy for us. It is a direct path, and we can get back to Godhead very soon. But if you go through the impersonal Brahman or Paramatma, it may take many, many years. Because now, if one person is in Brahman, he's meditating on impersonal Brahman, then after a few births, then he will come to Paramatma and then he will take up Krishna consciousness. So for this, for him to come from Brahman to Krishna, it takes many births. Or from Paramatma to Krishna, it takes him many years. So that's why they're saying, why not just when we know that finally the thing is Krishna, why don't we take that Bhakti Yoga directly, and why don't we worship Krishna? Why don't we practice Bhakti Yoga? That's what they're saying here. So, why do Jnanis and Ashtanga yogis? So, Gnani is a person who meditates on impersonal Brahman, and Ashtanga yogis, we know that we saw the whole chapter, they meditate on Paramatma. So, why do Jnanis and Ashtanga yogis take many births? First, we said, first reason Prabhupada gives is because their path is indirect. So, these Jnanis, they meditate on the absolute truth by mental speculation and discrimination. So we know, right? The Gnanis, they try to read the Vedas and Upanishads, and they try to speculate. It could be like this, God could be like this could be like that, like that. So they are just in that knowledge stage only. Okay, they just want to know this and that. Okay, and Ashtanga Yogi, he tries to realize God by mechanical control of the mind and senses. So we've seen, right, how Ashtanga Yogi, he tries to do all kinds of exercises, right? What is that? Eightfold Path Yoga system. Okay, where he has to control his senses by force. Okay, so everything is like a mechanical process, which is not practical. Okay, but Krishna is a person. He's not like a some concept or some energy. Okay, so that's why these paths, take a long time. Even Krishna himself says in the Bhagavad Gita, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Gnanavan Mam Prapadyate. So what does Krishna say? After many births, the wise surrender unto me. Okay, the main and second point Prabhupada says is because they do not begin with surrender. So these Gnanis and yogis, they don't surrender to God. Okay, why? The Gnani thinks, let me understand everything first. Gnani means what? He wants to understand, he wants to gain knowledge. Okay, so he says that let me understand everything first. Who am I? Who's God? Who's all that? So he wants to understand through the Vedas and Upanishads. And the yogis, the Ashtanga yogis, they think, okay, let me become perfect by my own effort. So they do all these things. They try to read the books, and then they renounce the world. They come into the forest and they start meditating on they have to control their senses. So everything they want to do everything perfect, everything by their own effort. Okay, but without surrender. So these two people also we can see there is no concept of God in between actually. Okay, then there is no surrender. Just because they want to get liberated from this material world, they think that this material world is a miserable place. So they just want to get liberated from this material world. That is why they are doing all this meditation on Brahman or Paramatma. Okay, but so there's no surrender. So, but without surrender, Krishna does not fully reveal himself. See, it's like this: a child who refuses to hold the father's hand will take a longer time to cross the road. But if he catches hold of the father's hand, he will happily cross it in just few seconds, right? If he does not hold the father's hand and he tries to cross by himself, he will not. It will take a much longer time. So that's the position of the Gnani and the yogis. And third point, what Prabhupada says, because they stop at partial realization. So we said, right, there are three stages of realizing the absolute truth, God. So what is that? We said Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So the Gnanis, they stop at Brahman. They meditate on the impersonal Brahman. And the Ashtanga yogis, they meditate on Paramatma in the heart. And Bhagavan is the Krishna, um, what is that? Bhagavan means what? Krishna, who is the supreme person. He is a person. So, Gnani stop at Brahman, yogis they stop at Paramatma. So, only when they go further to Bhagavan do they reach perfection. But both these Gnanis and yogis they stop at Brahman and Paramatma. So, only if they go to Bhagavan, Krishna, they reach perfection. So, this step it may take many lifetimes. Okay, that's and fourth reason Prabhupada gives is because bhakti alone gives direct access. See, means what? You're directly connecting to Krishna, right? And first thing is bhakti, it begins with surrender. So, bhakti engages the senses positively. Okay, so there is no artificial removing of the sense, saying that no, I don't want to see this, I don't want to eat this, not like that. So, you're positively engaging the senses, you're giving it work, okay, for all the senses, mind, body. So that's why bhakti is safe and it is fast. So Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, bhaktya mam abhijanati. So only by bhakti can I be known as I am. Okay, so Arjuna fears. What is Arjuna fearing? He's fearing that a fallen Ashtanga yogi, he may lose both the worlds. Spiritual world he may lose, and at the same time material world. But Krishna removes this fear. In the next sloka, we'll see how Krishna removes that fear of Arjuna, where he thinks that if Ashtanga yogi, if he takes to, I mean, like he has to sacrifice his material life to progress in spiritual life, right? But if in spiritual life he fails, so he will not be able to enjoy material life. At the same time, he has failed in spiritual life. But Krishna says, Krishna in the next few shlokas, he will remove that fear. What will happen? Okay, let's see what will happen. So, Hare Krishna Mataji, can you please read 6.39 shloka and translation?
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Sloka 6.39. एतन्मे संशयं कृष्ण चेतुम् अर्हसि अशेषतः त्वद् अन्यः संशयस्यास्य चेता न ह्युः उपद्यते.
Upadyate, or you can say cheta na hi upapadyate.
हि उपपद्यते चेतना हि उपपद्यते. ठीक है माता जी. ओके. Translation. This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for you, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. Hare Krishna.
Krishna. So here, now that's why he's putting this doubt. Whatever he had put questions to Krishna, so he's saying, these are my doubts, Krishna. Now you are the only one who can clear my doubts. So please clear them for me, he says. So now let's see what in 40 Krishna says. Hare Krishna Mataji, can you please read the 40 shloka and translation, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, please.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Partha Naiveha Namutra Vinashastasya Vidyate Nahi Kalyana Krita Kaschit Durgatim Tada Gachati. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol, very nice, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Translation: The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Son of Pratha, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji.
So, here in this shloka, Krishna is comforting Arjuna. So, he's saying a person who sincerely tries for spiritual life is never ruined, not in this life and not in the next life. So, even if someone starts Krishna consciousness but does not complete it, he is never a loser. So, spiritual effort is never wasted. So, good done for Krishna is always permanent. But material work can be lost, but devotional service stays with the soul. See, you see, material work, see, right from day one, right from the time you are born, you grow. You have to start from LKG, UKG, sorry, nursery, LKG, and then 10th, all those 10th, then you have to finish your 11th, 12th, and then you have to finish your degree, PhD, master's, whatever, and then you get a job, you earn everything. But that is lost as soon as you die. In the next birth, again, when you take birth, you have to start from scratch again, right? Again, you have to do your nursery, everything. You can't say that, oh, you can't say that in my previous janma I was doing this. I mean, in fact, we don't remember, but still, you can't say, even if you remember, you can't say in my previous birth I did so and so job, I was getting so much money. Why do I again have to study all from nursery? No, you have to start from zero. So nothing of your material credit comes in the next janma. It is zero. Okay, but spiritual credit, it is deposited. If you do 50% this janma, you will start in the next janma from 51. Okay, so that's what they're trying to say here. So material work can be lost, it will be lost, but devotional service stays with the soul. So why is bhakti, why is this devotional service not destroyed? Okay, because Krishna consciousness, first thing, it is auspicious. Okay, so anything connected to Krishna purifies the heart, and even a little bit of devotion is remembered by the soul. Okay, so Krishna says one who does good is never overcome by evil. And even Narada Muni, he says in Srimad Bhagavatam, if someone gives up material duties, takes shelter of Krishna, but falls down halfway, there is no loss. But a person who perfectly does worldly duties but has no Krishna consciousness, he gains nothing eternal. So, hope you understood the point. See, you do everything materially in this world, good, but there is no Krishna consciousness, there is nothing, no benefit. Narada Muni is saying he gains nothing eternal. But if he gives up all material duties, and takes shelter of Krishna, that is, practices Krishna consciousness, and even then he falls halfway, then also there is no loss. That what why there is no loss, we'll see. So, in the purport, Prabhupada says that there are three types of good people. One is karmis, okay, you follow rules for material happiness. So they do karma kanda. So they do all these yagnas so that they get wealth or heaven. Okay, but these people, they remain in samsara. They may be good, they follow rules and do everything for wealth, and they have all these material desires, so they still remain in samsara. And next, second kind of people, first karmis we saw, second is gnanis and yogis. What is their main goal? They want liberation. Okay, they take to these processes just for liberation. So that's why we earlier also we spoke in the earlier shlokas. This takes many births. Okay, but devotees who practice bhakti yoga, their aim is only Krishna. Okay, they don't want anything material. Like how the karmis, they wanted heaven, wealth, gnanis and yogis, they wanted liberation. But devotees, they don't want all these. They just want Krishna. So this is the true auspicious path. So bhakti yoga is the true auspicious path. So only activities that lead to Krishna consciousness are truly auspicious. Okay, everything else, even good karma, is temporary. Okay, and why is it that devotees don't lose anything? Because even though, suppose for instance, even the devotee, though he may be born in a low family, or even if his practice is incomplete, devotion continues from where it stopped. Like we saw, like we earlier spoke, if you finish 50% in this janma, you will start from 51 in your next birth. So you don't lose anything. So Krishna personally protects the soul. So what do we understand from the shloka? So in bhakti, there is no failure. There is only progress. This we have to understand. Okay. So let's go to 6.41. Mataji, can you please read the shloka and the translation, Mataji?
Sure, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, please.
Hare Krishna. Shloka 41. Prapya punya kritam loganushitva shashwatihi samaha shujinam श्रीमतां गेहे योगप्रष्टोऽभिजायते.
Hari Bol, very nice, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Translation: the unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Okay, so here, what they're trying to say is, if a yogi, he tries for spiritual life, but in case he does not finish, what happens to him? First, he first goes to heavenly planets or higher planets. There, he enjoys for many years. Then he comes back to earth. So on earth, he is born in a good family. So good family here means maybe in a righteous Brahmana family, Brahmana or Vaishnava family. Or second, he may be born in a rich, cultured, aristocratic family. Okay, so Prabhupada in a purport, he describes two types of unsuccessful yogis. Okay, so first one is like he practiced yoga for a short time. maybe he just did practice yoga for a couple of years, but because he could not control his senses fully, okay, because he had many material desires, so he was not able to complete. Some other reason he couldn't complete. He just started his yoga for 2 years and he could not complete. So such people, what happens? First, they go to a heavenly planets for heavenly enjoyment. Okay, after that is over, after the pious credit is over, then they take good birth on earth, like maybe in a rich family, or a Brahman or a Vaishnava family. And second category is one who practice. He's an advanced yogi, so he practiced most of his life, but still he could not perfect his life. He's almost on the verge of completing, but so he's still not perfect, almost done. So that person, that yogi, he gets a much better opportunity next life to finish his yoga and go back to God. Okay, so let's see first, why does Krishna give them heaven first? See, these they are actually practicing spirituality, right? So why does Krishna give them heaven first? Because the first category of people are who just started their yoga process. Okay, Ashtanga yoga, they started. They just did for 2 years, and they fall down, and they fell down. For instance, that is the first case. Why do they fall down? Because they have material desires, right? So that is the reason. That's why when the yogi who dies, he first goes to heaven by because they have pious credits, they still have material desires, and we all know that Krishna is merciful. He's not cruel. He fulfills our desires, right? So that's why first he sends them to heavenly planets. So Krishna lets them finish their remaining material enjoyment, which they could not do in the material world. So first lets them finish that, so that when all this material enjoying all this material enjoyment is over, then they can fully focus on devotion. See, once we are vexed up with all these material life enjoyment, then we feel like focusing on devotion. So that's why Krishna gives all this enjoyment and material planets. So after that is over, they come back to uh, they focus on devotion. Okay, and we may be wondering, why does Krishna give birth in a Brahmana or a rich family, or why not in some other family? See, Brahmana or rich family, there are advantages, because when you're born in such families, you get good education. There is that religious atmosphere, and you don't have to work hard so much, right? Because you are born in a rich or a Brahmana family, so you don't have to work so much. Okay, so you'll have a lot of time for spiritual life. So that's the reason you are born. The Ashtanga yogis, they made to born. Those who don't complete their spirituality, they are born in a Brahmana or a rich family. And you should not think that this is accidental. It is purely Krishna's arrangement. They are born in a rich family or a Brahmin or a Vaishnav family. So you should not think that they are just somehow by luck or fluke they are born there. No, it is Krishna's mercy. So it's all Krishna's arrangement. So yoga is meant for Krishna consciousness. It is not for enjoyment. Okay, so even if one fails, Krishna never forgets the effort. Okay, so spiritual progress is carried forward to the next life. See, for instance, it's just like a student who fails an exam. So he fails the exam, but he's promoted to a better school with better facilities. Why? He goes to a better school because he failed only. He was made to change that school and go to a even better school where they can give him more guidance, because he's a weak child in studies. So they will join, the parents will join him in a much better school where they can guide or tune him, right? Where everything will be good, and there'll be better facilities for their child to develop. Okay, like that, similarly, a failed yogi is never thrown down. He's placed in a better position to succeed next time. So that's why he's made to be born in a rich family or a Brahman family so that he can finish, he can succeed next time. Okay, so in spiritual life, even failure is a success. That's what we have to know. Okay, so there's no loss. That's why they say in bhakti or in spirituality, there is always never any loss. The only loss is materially, and materially is we come empty handed, we go empty handed. We have to start all over again. So let's see shloka number 6.42. Mataji, can you please read the shloka and the translation, Mataji?
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Yes, sure.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Shloka 42. Athava yoginam iva.
Yoginam, Mataji.
Yoginam iva kule bhavati dhimatam ekadhi ekadhi durlabhataram loge janma yedidrishyam.
Haribol, wonderful.
Thank you, Mataji. Translation: Oh, if unsuccessful after long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly, such a birth is rare in this world.
Okay.
Hare
So
Krishna.
here, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So earlier shloka, we saw a yogi, Ashtanga yogi, who just starts his yoga process. He doesn't complete. What happens? He goes first to heaven, and then he is born in a rich or a Vaishnava or a pious in a pious Brahmana house. But for a Ashtanga yogi who practiced yoga seriously for a long time, but still does not complete it. Like he is finished 90%, he's finished practice. Not like the earlier case where only he finished maybe 10% or 20%. So he finished 90%. So, but still he is not able to, he is, because of some reason he could not complete. So such a person, he does not go to heaven first because he's almost 90% and only 10%. So he does not go to heaven. Instead, he takes birth in a family of transcendentalists or devotee family. He takes birth. He directly takes birth in a devotee family. And we saw that in the translation, Krishna clearly says such a birth is very rare in this world. Okay, so Prabhupada, what is, I mean, like family of transcendentalists means it's like where Krishna consciousness comes naturally to them. Okay, they are born in such families. They're made because only 10% is left for them. And they have no material desires. That's why they have no reason to go to heavenly planets. So only 10%, and they can go back to Godhead. So that's why the Krishna gives them a chance so that they're born in a family, directly born in a family of devotees, where Krishna consciousness is natural and bhakti is practiced daily. And they get, from day one itself, they get spiritual knowledge directly. So children, small. That's why the people for devotees who have devotee children, they are like actually because in their previous janma somehow they could not complete. So 90% they have completed. Only 10% is pending. So that's why they are born in devotee parents. Yeah, they're very fortunate. We should not think that they don't know anything. In fact, they are almost done. 90% they have completed, and only 10% is remaining. So just come for that 10% so that they can practice right from childhood. They imbibe Krishna consciousness. It becomes like a natural life. Like for people like us, we were born in material life in normal karmi families. So for us, that we get used to that way of life. For us, it's like money is everything. We leave God and everything, remaining everything. We study more, more, more. We study more, more. For what? We are trained from early childhood. Study, 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 so that you will get more, more money. That is what we are trained, and people also study for that sake, just to get money. But these devotee children, they are raised in a Krishna conscious manner. Okay, they are spiritually trained right from childhood, right from birth. Okay, so that's why we see, and Prabhupada also gives the example of people, devotees who are there in Acharya families, Goswami families. Okay, so these are families where devotional service flows generation after generation. Okay, and we see that Prabhupada writes in the translation that their birth is very rare. See, that's why, na? Because most people are born, see, many people in this material world, they're born in ignorance. They're born in materialistic families with no spiritual training. See, nowadays, most of the families, they're godless. They don't have belief in God. Or even if they believe, they say God has no form, He's formless. And we see atheists nowadays. Okay, so they have no spiritual training. But now here, the soul, it starts spiritual life right from childhood. So no struggle to discover Krishna. Okay, so right from day one, they are in Krishna consciousness. So bhakti is already awakened. It becomes a default routine for them. See, for devotees, it becomes practical that they offer everything to God, to Krishna, and eat. But if you go to a material person's house, and we ask them, "Do you offer to Krishna?" They say, "What offering? What? We just eat it directly." So everything is totally different. Okay. So, what is the difference between Shloka 6.41 and 4.2 is, see, in 4.1, we saw that a devotee, he does just 2 years of practice, devotional, 2 years of spirituality, and he falls down because he has a lot of material desires or whatever be the reason. So, such a person, after he dies, he goes to first enjoying the heavenly planets because he has material desires. Once all those desires are over, then he comes back to earth, and he's placed in a pious Brahmana family or a rich family. Okay, so that he can continue his spirituality. Okay, and but a yogi who has done most of his spirituality, he is not sent to heavenly planets. Why? Because he has no material desires. Only he's almost done. Okay. And then that's why he's made to born directly in a family of devotees, wherein from day one itself he can practice Krishna consciousness. So that is the difference here. So that's why they're saying such a birth is very rare. And Prabhupada also says in the purport that his Guru Maharaj and he himself, they took birth in such families by Krishna's grace. If you see Prabhupada's family, Prabhupada belonged to a Vaishnava family where they worship the deities of Radha Krishna, Gauranga. So they used to worship. So Prabhupada is always thankful, thankful to Krishna that he always took birth in a Vaishnava family by Krishna's mercy. So this shows that bhakti continues across lifetimes. Okay, and spiritual effort is never lost. So yoga is not destroyed by death. So when you die, it does not mean whatever that yoga that you practice is gone waste. No, it is carried life to life. So Krishna personally arranges the next birth. It's not accidental. He arranges personally so that he can progress in his spirituality. So the Lord becomes responsible for his devotee. Okay. So now let's go to 6.43. Yeah. Mataji, can you please read the shloka and the translation, Mataji?
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Yes, Madaji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Shloka 4, 6.43. Tra- Tatradam buddhi samyogam लभते पौर्वदेहिकं यतते च ततो भूयः संसिद्धौ कुरु नन्दन.
Hari
Hare
bol.
Krishna.
Hari bol. Very nice, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Translation: on taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success. O son of Kuru.
Hare
Hare
Krishna. Thank
Krishna.
you, Mataji. So, after what they're trying to say, after taking birth in such a spiritual family, what happens to the soul? The soul naturally revives the divine consciousness of his previous life without external effort because it naturally comes to him, right? Because he's born to devotee parents, from day one, Krishna consciousness becomes it becomes like a routine for him. So, and again, continues spiritual practice until he achieves complete perfection. So, it means that he has natural attraction to Krishna and he's no more interested in gross material life. Okay? And he has that faith. It need not be taught to him because he's already born in a devotee family. So that faith in Krishna automatically comes to him. You don't have to teach him, oh, Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, not someone else. So he has that faith. Everything is like natural. So bhakti never disappears. It sleeps and awakens. Okay, we just have to awaken that bhakti is actually there. It is lying dormant within us, so we just have to waken it up. So when he takes rebirth, it is not a loss for him. Why? Because the soul does not start from zero like in material life, right? Material life, we have to start from scratch, but spiritual life, the soul does not start from zero. He starts from where he stopped last janma, okay, and then he continues from there. So Krishna also says that neha vikramana shosti means whatever little bit of devotional service or spirituality that you do is never lost. There is no loss on this path. See, we see the example of King Bharata. So, King Bharata, we know that he's the world emperor. He left everything for spiritual life. Okay, he left his wife, kingdom, property, money, wealth, everything he left. But what happened? Finally, he became attached to a deer. So he fell down spiritually. Second life, what happened? Because he was thinking of the deer, he thought of the deer, and that's why he in his second life he was born as a deer. And in the janma of a deer, he remembered his past life. Okay, so that's why he only stayed near the sages. He didn't go he didn't get attached to the other deers or anything. So he stayed near the sages, the deer, he stayed near the sages or the rishis, and he avoided sense enjoyment, all that. Okay, he ate only dried grass to avoid killing insects also. So what happened? Third life, he was born as Jadabharata. So Jadabharata, if we see, externally he acted as if he was a dumb person, as if he didn't know anything, even the basics, how to eat or what, everything, nothing. He pretended like that, but internally he was a perfect Paramahamsa. And we saw how he enlightened King Rahaguna. Okay, so that itself is a different topic. Okay, so here we understand, even if we fall down in spirituality, it cannot stop bhakti. And why is it that Krishna, he gives repeated chances? Because obviously Krishna is merciful. He wants all of us to, we are his children. He wants us to come back. Now the father, he can't stay separate from the children, right? He wants the children to come back. We are all misplaced here in this material world and we are suffering here. Okay, so Krishna wants us to come back. So that's why the Lord, being affectionate, he wants us to. He gives us repeated chances. So Krishna, once he accepts somebody, he never rejects them. What does Krishna say? My devotee never perishes. Okay. So Krishna is saying in the sloka, Krishna remembers us even when we forget him. So that's why he arranges for such a family, such an environment, and he gives such opportunities so that we may continue our devotional service or devotional practice or whatever, spirituality. So it may look like bhakti may stop, but it never starts from zero. We continue from where we stop. Okay, so that is the thing. Now let's go to 6.44. Mataji, can you please read the shloka and the translation?
Yes, Madaji. Hare Krishna. Shloka 644. Hare Krishna. Shloka 644. Purvabhyasena tenaiva kriyade vyavashopi saha.
It's better we say hriyate hi avasho, Mataji. Avashopi saha.
Hi avashopi saha. Jijñas जिज्ञासुर अभियोगस्य ब्रह्म शब्द ब्रह्मादि वर्तते.
Hari bol, hari bol.
Translation: by virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So because of spiritual practice done in the previous life, in the next janma, the soul automatically it feels attracted to yoga and spiritual life, even without trying to search for it. See, that's why we see some people, they just come into bhakti and they progress so fast. We may be doing 10 years of bhakti and we are still there only, but some people, they come immediately, they progress so fast, they progress so fast spiritually. That is the reason, because in their previous birth they already had that baggage of spiritual credit. So that's why they continue from where they left. So that's why they progress very fast. Okay, and for such a sincere person, what do you say, he is above all these dry ritualistic rules of the scriptures. Like he is not worried about karma kanda or gnana or all these things, ashtanga, I mean gnana, everything. So he's not bothered about all that. He's above that. He rises above gnana, karma, everything, karma yoga, everything. Okay, so the spiritual progress, it just goes forward. Okay, and real yoga is attraction based and it is not rule based. Okay, so initially when we practice yoga, it is rule based because we don't have interest for spirituality. So we have to chant and we have to do sadhana, everything. Okay, but later once we get attraction for that, we it is like spontaneous. We get attracted, so nobody has to wake us up for mangalarti. We becomes when we develop that taste, it becomes spontaneous, so like that. So real yoga is like attraction based but not rule based. And see, when devotion awakens, we don't have to force somebody. So nobody needs that force. We don't need that social pressure. We don't need that external motivation. Okay, automatically that love for Krishna, automatically they do everything on their own. But so here, when we say that we don't, I mean, like above ritualistic principles, we are saying, right? So it does not mean we are disrespecting the Vedas. It's not that we are rejecting discipline. It's not that we are acting independently. So it only means we are not stuck only in the external rituals. So we are aiming directly for Krishna consciousness, understanding the purpose behind rules. Okay, so rules are just like what do you say? They are like ladders. They are not destinations. So initially we need rules, but later it's not a must that we have to follow the rules once we develop that taste. Okay. So Prabhupada explains why advanced souls don't depend on rituals. So Prabhupada says that's what we explain, right? Rituals are for beginners. When we do all these, follow all these rules and regulations, do sadhana, we perform these rituals to purify ourselves. And advanced souls are already purified. Okay, so that's why they don't have to do this sadhana. Don't have to follow these rules and regulations, everything. The advanced souls, their focus is direct remembrance of Krishna. See, it's just like a graduate. He does not need nursery lessons, right? He can directly go do his graduation. And a healthy person, he doesn't need medicine like that. Okay, Srimad Bhagavatam, it gives an example. See, even if someone is born in the family of a dog eater, but if the holy name is on his tongue, it means that he has already performed sacrifices, he has done austerities, he has studied the scriptures, he has bathed in holy places. Okay, so because chanting itself contains everything. Okay, if you just chant, even though he may be a chandala or a dog eater, automatically he gets purified. Okay, see one more example of chanting. See, Haridas Thakur, he was actually born in a Muslim family. So he had no Vedic rituals by birth. He did not do any Vedic rituals. Okay, but still he was able to chant daily 192 rounds. And that's why he was given the title Namacharya by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Why did Lord Chaitanya give him that title of Namacharya? Because his heart was already purified from previous lives. So unless one is purified, one cannot chant the holy name constantly. So we should understand that getting an attraction for chanting is not cheap. So it comes from past Sukruti and Bhakti. And Bhakti doesn't begin suddenly, it matures. Okay, so initially what we have to do? Rituals bring us to Bhakti. Rituals mean what? These rules and regulations, sadhana, they bring us to Bhakti. But Bhakti when you do bhakti like that, it carries us beyond these rituals. We come to a stage where we go beyond all these rules and regulations. Okay, so let's go to 6.45. Hare Krishna Mataji, can you please read Mataji the shloka and the translation?
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Sloka 45. Prayatnad yatamaanastu yogi samshuddha kilbishah aneka janma samsiddhas tado yadi param gatim. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Very nice, Mataji.
Translation. Thank you, Mataji. Translation. Hare Krishna. And when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contaminations, then ultimately achieving perfection after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So when the yogi, what are they trying to say? When the yogi again sincerely tries to progress, his old impurities are gradually washed away. Okay, and after many births of practice, he finally reaches the supreme goal. That is what? Krishna consciousness. So this is like what they're saying, the Ashtanga yogi coming to Krishna consciousness. So Ashtanga yogi stage is what? Where he meditates only on the Paramatma in the heart. So what are they saying here? Now, as he continues, as he takes more births, finally he comes to the stage where all his impurities are gradually washed away. And after many, many births of practice, he finally comes to his final goal, that is practicing Krishna consciousness. So, what do we understand here? Yoga is never lost. See, it continues. So whatever was done earlier, it does not disappear. It resumes from where it stopped. Okay, so good birth. When you get a good birth, it means what? Good facility, but not guaranteed. Right? See, when Prabhupada says that you get birth in a pious or aristocratic family or a devotee family, the main reason you are put in such a family is so that you get more time in spirituality, and you get guidance because you are born in a devotee family. You have that spiritual atmosphere. So that is the reason there are chances that you may become a devotee, that you progress in Krishna consciousness, but it is not sure because personal effort is required. Okay, so there is always a chance that Krishna will help us, but it is we who should be determined, right? Though we have the facility, everything is there. See, because sometimes what happens if you are born in a rich family, too much wealth, you may get spoiled and you don't feel like doing bhakti, right? Or if you are born in a devotee family, in many devotee families we see that, I mean, not many, but at least in some we see that not everybody is favorable to Krishna consciousness. Some children, some devotee parents children, they still prefer to be in the materialistic world. So there's every chance that they may not. Okay, so it can happen if they have the desire, but Krishna will give circumstances so that he gives chances so that we can progress in bhakti. But it's always not sure that we will progress in Krishna consciousness, because sometimes if we are as we discussed, like if you are born in a rich family, the Krishna's intention is you don't have to work hard, so you'll have more time to practice spirituality. With that intention, he makes you born in that family. But if we get attached to all the riches and we go on increasing our material desires and our enjoyments, comforts, and we are just only improving materially and not spiritually, so So there's a chance that we may fall down, right? So that's why bhakti is the, so that's why the Ashtanga yogis, they may fall down because of these, even though they may be born in a rich family or a pious Brahmana family. Okay, so that's why it takes, because they have so many material desires, and that's why they take many births. Why? Because their conditioning is very deep, ego is very stubborn. Okay, that's why they take many janmas to purify themselves of all these material desires and to come to Krishna consciousness. Okay, so for that purification to happen from all these material desires requires many janmas for Ashtanga yogi to come to the level of Krishna consciousness. Okay. So bhakti appears when contamination ends. Contamination means what? All these material desires go away, we get purified. So for this we see the example, we saw the example of King Bharata, right? He failed once, next continued next life, he became what? Jada Bharata. He got full realization. Okay, so what do we have to understand in spirituality? Delay may happen, but whatever spirituality that you have done is never destroyed. Okay, so yoga may take many births. See, for a Ashtanga yogi to become a Krishna conscious person, it may take many births. But finally, he will come to that bhakti stage, whatever be it. Okay, so there's no loss. So first he started as an Ashtanga yogi, and then slowly, he has, because he has material desires, slowly he gets purified after many births, and then he comes to Krishna consciousness. Finally, there is no loss at all. So 6.46. Mataji, can you please read the shloka and the translation?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Tapasvipyethiko yogi jnanibhyo.
Mataji, 1 second, sorry. Tapasvibhyo adhiko yogi.
Tapasibhyo adhiko yogi jnanibhyo abhi madodhikaha.
Mato adhikaha or matodhikaha.
Madodhikaha karmibhyash chathiko yogi tasmat yogi bhavarjuna.
Hari bol,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna. Translation: a yogi is greater than the aesthetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fugitive worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances be a yogi. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, what Prabhupada is trying to say here is, amongst all of these that Krishna is mentioned here, a yogi, Ashtanga yogi is the highest. Here they are comparing ascetic. Okay, ascetic means he is one who does austerity, and greater than he's greater than Ashtanga yogi is greater than a person who does austerity, and the greater than the empiricist means what? Jnana yogi and karma yogi. So we should understand one thing. Better than Ashtanga yogi is a bhakti yogi, but Ashtanga yogi is better than a Gnana yogi, karma yogi, and everybody, karma kandi. Okay, that's what they're trying to say in this shloka. So Krishna says that a yogi is greater than an ascetic. Ascetic means one who practices austerity. And empiricist. Empiricist means one who studies and speculates. He's a Gnana yogi and a fruitative worker. He's a karma kandi. Okay, one who works for results. So therefore, now Krishna is telling Arjuna, at least in all circumstances, be a yogi. See, what does yogi mean here? See, Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, what does yoga mean? Yoga means linking with the Supreme Lord. So, depending on how we try to link, the yoga gets different names, right? But yoga means linking with the Supreme Lord. So, if you are doing karma yoga, you are linking to God through work. Jnana yoga means we are linking to Krishna through knowledge. And bhakti yoga means linking through loving service, devotional service to Krishna. So, why bhakti yoga is the highest? So, Prabhupada says that, see, with austerity, when you do austerity without self realization, that is incomplete. See, for example, you're fasting or you're doing that, but there's no Krishna in that. What is the use of such kind of fasting? If you do austerity, you're just fasting or you're keeping yourself silent, you don't talk, mauna vrata they say, right? But there is no concept, no thinking of Krishna, no concept of Krishna. So what is the use of such mauna or fasting? Okay, so that's what they're saying. Next, second, Jnana Yoga. See, knowledge without surrender is dry, they're saying. See, you work without Krishna consciousness, it is a waste of time. Okay, you are more bound because if you work without Krishna consciousness, you will have a good or a bad karma. Okay, so you have to suffer or enjoy the reactions for that. Okay, so example is like big philosophy but no devotion. So work without Krishna consciousness is a waste of time. Example is like, for example, you do charity but no connection to the Lord. What is the use of such kind of charity? So you are working, work in the sense you are doing some good action, charity, but there is no connection to Krishna. What is the use of such charity? It becomes a pious credit, right? Pious credit means you have to come back again to this material world to enjoy that. Whatever be the reason, you have to come back. Good or bad karma, you have to come back. But Bhakti Yoga, it contains all the three. It has knowledge, detachment, action. So all are focused on Krishna. So that is why nothing can excel Bhakti Yoga. So we'll just take one example. See, a man may give up food. For example, we are talking about ascetic. So he may give up food. Okay? Because ascetic means a person who practices austerity. He may give up food. Another may read many books like a gnani. Okay, another may work very hard like a karmi. But a devotee cooks for Krishna. What an ascetic is doing, everything a devotee he uses in the service of Krishna. A devotee cooks for Krishna and he hears for Krishna. So he offers everything to Krishna. Right? So he is the topmost yogi. He is connecting everything, knowledge to Krishna, the food that he's making to Krishna. So everything is connecting to Krishna. So he is the topmost yogi, even while living normally. So Krishna does not say that yoga is better than bhakti. Because why? Because bhakti itself is the perfection of yoga. With how that bhakti is the perfection of yoga, we'll see in the next shloka. Okay, so to get a better understanding, how bhakti itself is the perfection of yoga. So the best yogi is not the one who stops acting, but the one who acts. Now the class chadutundi kitu ikkada agu. So the best yoga is not one who stops acting, but the one who acts only for Krishna. Okay, so now let's see the 47th shloka. Mataji, can you please read the 47th shloka and translation, Mataji?
Yes,
Yeah.
Mataji. Hare Krishna. Yoginam api sarvesham Matgadenandar Atmana Shraddhavan Bhajade Yo Mam Same Yukta Tamo Madaha. Hare Krishna. Or translation, and of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and in the highest of all. That is my opinion. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So here, the final verdict is being given of the entire Dhyana Yoga chapter. So what is Krishna saying? Among all yogis, the best yogi is not the one, he's saying, who sits in the forest, or like who accepts renunciation, who sits in the forest, he controls his breath, speculates on Brahman, or performs severe austerities. So he's not saying a Gnana yogi or a Ashtanga yogi or all these people, or people who perform severe austerities. But he's saying the highest yogi is one who has strong faith. He's always thinking of Krishna. He keeps Krishna within his heart and serves him with love. So that yogi is the most intimately united with Krishna. Okay, so that is what Krishna is saying. He is the highest, topmost yogi. So a Krishna conscious person is the highest yogi, not a Ashtanga yogi or a Gnana yogi or a karma yogi. So, and Krishna clearly says, he says in the translation in the end, that is my opinion. Okay, so who can be a better, a higher authority than Krishna himself? Okay, so that's what Krishna is trying to say. And why the word bhajate is used here in this shloka, we see in the third line, bhajate is used. Bhajate does not mean the casual puja that we do. Bhajate here means it's loving service to Krishna. See, you may worship a demigod occasionally, but demigod you worship for occasionally. When you want, when you have some material desire, you worship a demigod. But you must serve Krishna always. Why? Because what is the swarupa of the jiva? Jivera swarupa hoy Krishnera nityadas. We were created by the Lord to serve Him. That is our constitutional position. We have to always serve Krishna. So, if the soul does not serve Krishna, it must serve Maya. That's why we fall down. If we don't practice Krishna consciousness, we practice Maya consciousness. So, that's why we fall down. Okay, so that's why, see, all yogas lead to bhakti. Okay, so actually, how do we start generally? What is the yoga progression ladder? First, karma kandis. Karma kandi means what? They do everything. They do work with some expectation. Then karma yoga. What is karma yoga? One step higher. Next ladder means you work for Krishna, but without any expectation of result. You leave the result to Krishna. Then Gnana Yoga. Then in Gnana Yoga, you come to the understanding that you are the soul, and you understand that your relationship with to Krishna as the super soul. Okay, so that stage is also incomplete because Gnana Yoga, they meditate and try to merge into the impersonal Brahman. Okay, then after Gnana Yoga it comes Ashtanga Yoga. So here also it is incomplete because you mechanically control your senses, you renounce everything, you meditate only on Paramatma. Okay, But the highest is Bhakti Yoga, where you meditate, where the yoga is direct. You are directly connecting with Krishna, who is the Supreme Lord. So direct loving service to Krishna. So that is the ladder. Karma Kanda, Karma Yoga, Gnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, and finally Bhakti Yoga. So when we know that we have to do Bhakti Yoga and Krishna is the ultimate, so why not do direct Bhakti Yoga? Why do you want to take all these ladders and move many janmas, many births? Okay, so that's why they are saying, um, so when someone reaches bhakti, it means that he has crossed all these yogas. Okay, so we have to understand that when if anybody is doing bhakti yoga, it means he has crossed all these other yogas and then he has come to bhakti yoga. So, ideal bhakti yoga, he always thinks of Krishna. He serves him as a friend, master, child, or a beloved, and he lives in this world but remains with Krishna always. Okay, so I mean, these are the qualities of a pure devotee. So he is always in Krishna. His mind is always Krishna. What to do for Krishna? How to please Krishna? Like that. So such a yogi, there is no chance for him to fall down. He does not get confused because he has full faith in Krishna. So he does not need anything else. Okay. So the highest yogi is not one who controls his breath or he renounces everything and goes into the forest and meditates. But highest yogi is one who gives his heart to Krishna. So he's a bhakti yogi. So that is the highest of all yogas. That is what is a conclusion of this chapter. So with this, we finish chapter 6, Mataji, and maybe from tomorrow we can start with chapter 7.
Okay,